Hi, good night to everybody. We are going to call this meeting to order now. It is 7 p.m. on September 19, 2022. And this is the 11th public meeting of the City of Portland Police Accountability Commission Subcommittee on Research. If the Spanish language interpreter, please can give the information on the Spanish language interpretation. Okay, they're not here. I'm sorry. I didn't. It's true. I will do the Spanish interpretation message. Este es un meeting público sujeto a la ley de Oregon y a la ciudad de Portland con las reglas administrativas y va a ser grabado. La interpretación en español está disponible para esta junta. Cuando quiera tener acceso al lenguaje en español, a la interpretación, usted puede ver puede verlo en el video por la gente que está hablando, pero el sonido va a ser reemplazado por el intérprete. Para tener acceso a esto, por favor, haga clic en donde dice Language Interpretation en la junta de Zoom, en los controles, abajo de su pantalla y seleccione español. Gracias. Thank you. The city normally offers ASL interpretation. Unfortunately, today we receive a cancellation notice and will not have ASL today. We will resume having ASL interpretation at future meetings. Finally, the closed captioning is turned on in Zoom as another means of assistance. But please note that this is an automatic captioning services and it is not always accurate. The city supports access to meetings of the Police Accountability Commission and can provide other language support as well. Please email in advance of future public meetings, either as a response to a public meeting notice or directly to policeaccountability@portlandoregon.gov to ask for other access assistance, including interpretation into other languages. This meeting is a public meeting subject to the City of Portland Administrative Code and Oregon State Law and is being recorded. For this meeting, the chat function is enabled for commission members to communicate with each other. Members of the public will be able to ask questions using Zoom's Q&A feature. As the commissioners are presenting and or discussing things, if attendees have questions, please feel free to submit them through the Q&A. We hope to use this feature to help guide our conversation during the meeting and future meetings and agenda topics. We like to be clear that not all questions will be answered during the meeting, but if answered, both the question and answer will be visible to you and will become part of the meeting record. To access this feature, please click the Q&A icon on the middle of the screen.
And now we'll have the land acknowledgement. I think I am doing that tonight. Although the city has asked for a moratorium on land acknowledgements, the co-chairs have received a request from a PAC member that some form of land acknowledgement continue. We would like to recognize we're working to find a respectful way to continue of silence. Thank you. Now we'll talk briefly about the community agreements that I think are going to be shared. I don't have a way to share them though. I'm sorry.
No, don't worry. Co-share, we will show it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And now we're gonna read the community agreements. There's 2 pages. Dr. Moses will send to the other page too, and just reflect on it. If you have it, everybody can read it, please. Okay, I will ask everyone if they are agreed with these community agreements. Please give me a thank you. Thank you, everyone. Now I will pass it over to the co-chair to discuss the timeline.
Thank you. The commission is currently in the fact-finding phase of work, which has been extended into September. This phase of work may need to be extended further based on the timeline of this subcommittee. The phase includes hearing from key stakeholders, identifying barriers to accountability in Portland presently, and examining systems of accountability from other jurisdictions and proposals from subject matter experts. It also includes increased community engagement work. Future phases of work will develop the parameters for the new police accountability system before the commission presents that to the City Council in 2023 for their consideration and approval. Following today's meeting, here are the next several upcoming meetings of the PAC. There will be at least one more meeting of the subcommittee on research this Thursday, September 22nd. If the subcommittee needs another meeting, it may be held September 26th. The full commission will meet again on September 29th. This slide is the current project plan for the fact-finding phase of the Police Accountability Commission's work. It's not the agenda, and it is updated regularly. This slide is mostly for members of the public to be able to understand how the commission gets from now through the end of the phase, which focuses on identifying areas of agreement among commission members and as to barriers to the accountability in the current system, best practices from Portland and other jurisdictions, and suggestions to consider from experts, as well as taking public comment and meeting with key stakeholders. Today's meeting falls into the green box with the purple border. As part of completing the fact-finding phase, the full commission will consider and ideally approve 3 documents which are listed on this page. The first 2 are being developed in this subcommittee for eventual referral to the full commission, where they will be discussed again before being approved. The third, which focuses on barriers to police accountability in the current system in Portland, as well as best practices in Portland, is being developed at the full commission level throughout this phase as well. Today's meeting agenda focuses on the first 2 draft documents just mentioned. It will primarily focus on the practices from other jurisdictions document, including a walkthrough of the Word document. Discussion on this topic may also include finishing review of the spreadsheet tab on this topic. Any remaining time may go towards reviewing the draft areas of agreement on proposals from subject matter experts. There will also be time for public comment during today's meeting.
Thank you. Co-chair Andy, would you like something else so we can start with the discussion?
I think we can move on to starting with the discussion. And I'm sorry, my camera is going. You know what? I think I'm one of those people that My camera doesn't like my skin color because it goes on and off all the time. And I'm really sorry. It looks really dark in here and it's not dark in my bedroom. So sorry about that.
It's okay. Thank you. We will now move into discussing the draft areas of agreement on best practice and practice to avoid for other jurisdictions. This will include review the document, which has had some updates to the text. It will also include revisiting items flagged for further discussion. We ask you to follow our normal discussion guide rules. Please be brief each time you speak, even if you can speak multiple times. Please be facilitator and remember that we're now using a weighted stack in our discussions. Finally, please be forward-looking in your comments. Will the co-chairs like to describe the updates to the draft, then get the discussion started?
Yes, I would like to start actually by asking staff to give us a little update on our timeline, if you would, please.
Certainly. So for the subcommittee, there is another meeting scheduled, as co-chair Angie just said, on Thursday, September 22nd. We've also held another date and will potentially meet on Monday, September 26th, depending on if there is a referral of a document out on Thursday. If there is a referral of a document out on Thursday, we wouldn't need to meet. The subcommittee will not need to meet on Monday, and that'll be confirmed whether or not that meeting is canceled tomorrow. With relation to the overall timeline, which I think is possibly what your question referred to, Co-Chair Sophia, there is, sorry, I will slow down. With relation to the full commission timeline, which I believe is what the question more referred to, there is another consideration, which is that the full commission is nearing the end of the phase of work. There are about half of the transition tasks have been completed, and the full commission is nearing the completion of the draft document it is developing directly, which is the draft areas of agreement on barriers to police accountability and best practices in Portland. Following that, the only other content that the full commission will be discussing during the phase of work it is currently in, the fact-finding phase, are the two documents that will be referred from this subcommittee out. As a result, with the exception of the next full commission meeting, which is Thursday, September 29th, all meetings of the commission will be meetings of the subcommittee until these documents are forwarded out, because otherwise there's nothing for the full commission to do for this phase of work, and the phase of work would extend further. To be very clear on that, there are 6 phases of work. The commission has an 18-month timeline. Therefore, they should roughly average 3 months each. And this phase of work is currently in its 6th month. So there is a timeline consideration to be held to. So in collaboration with the co-chairs of the full commission, as well as the co-chairs of the subcommittees, staff is trying to ensure that there is the most efficient use of public meeting slots to achieve the end of the phase of work as rapidly as possible. As soon as the phase of work completes, the next phase will start, which is the establishing powers and duties phase of work, in which the commission will begin for the first time discussing what the new system will look like directly in Portland. I'll pass it back to the co-chairs, co-chair Angie.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Let me lower my hand. There you go. Yeah. Thank you for that. For talking about that timeline. I did want to reiterate that I sent out a message today, just kind of talking to how we are hoping to look at these documents on a broader view, because we're trying to finish them up so we can get to the portion where we're talking with the full commission about these documents and approving those with the full commission. So I just wanted to reiterate that, and hopefully the cadence of this meeting will go a little bit quicker so we can get these documents finished and to the full commission, so then we can have that debate, or not that debate, but that discussion. Thank you.
Commissioner Dan?
Hi, good evening. Yes, Dan Handelman, Commissioner. I use he, him pronouns.
I just wanted to chime in before Dan. I'm sorry, Dan.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I
Coach
was on
Sherman.
mute.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry, Dan. I just wanted to chime in after Commissioner Angie's comment, just to say that, you know, what we're trying to do right now is produce a document. So I want to just go what our goal is right now. There's two documents. One document is our best practices, and the other one is our my brain's gone dead. Our technical specialist. My brain, I don't know why I can't think of the name right now, but anyway, subject matter experts. That's it. So what we're trying to do, and I want to reiterate this at the beginning, is what we're trying to do is make a document or create a document for the full commission and the city commissioners that makes it, taking the information that we've researched, making it more accessible and digestible in a document form in order us to convey our point of view to them. I know we spent a lot of time on some details, and what we're focused on, we're not going to get rid of those details, but what we're going to focus on what we need to put in the document. And that's, I'm just going to repeat, is making it more accessible, taking the information that we've got, making it more accessible and digestible in order for us to convey our point of view. So with that said, I will let Mr. Handelman continue. If there's no other questions about what I've said, just immediately. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Co-Chair Glenn. I'm glad that this afternoon's email was brought up. The email specifically said something about the work on the document being done outside of the meetings, and I didn't understand the meaning of that. I know we're not supposed to deliberate on things outside of meetings, but I think we also have done smaller work groups where we've kind of got into the weeds on things and we're able to get stuff cranked out for the full commission. Hopefully we can do that for this subcommittee too. I've been suggesting that for a while, and I hope that we'll consider doing that. We didn't receive the document for today's meeting until a little more than an hour ago at best. And the one that was presented to us yesterday as a preliminary document is substantially different from the one that was given to us today, which makes it very difficult to even have a reasonable discussion about what you're hoping to get accomplished tonight, I think. But I just want to make a larger point about these details, and the statement's been made a few times about this isn't written in stone and we can come back to this. I don't think we're ever going to come back to this because it's too much work to come back to. We're going to have too much going forward to come back, and we're not going to want to be 2/3 of the way through designing the new system and say, oh yeah, didn't we have some information about that? Let's go back and find this spreadsheet and put this together. So I think it's really crucial for this document to include all the information we're going to need for the rest of the phases. And I just also, if you look at the timeline that's laid out in the quarterly report that's being presented to the council on Wednesday, this subcommittee didn't start meeting until June. So we've only been going for 3 months, even though the phase may have started in April. We didn't start meeting until June. So I feel like I want to make sure that we don't leave things out, and it's hard for me to know what is going to be added in, because as I said, when I looked at this afternoon that had been sent earlier, didn't have a lot of details that were then added in between then and this evening. So maybe you can get a little bit more specific about what you mean by none of the details are getting left out, because I can see presenting this to the full commission by reading the headers on each section and then say, and in that section we have examples of what that looks like. We don't have to go over all those details to have the commission approve what we're presenting to them, because this isn't what the, we're not creating what the board looks like. We're just giving examples that we can use for the rest of the phases. So I'm hoping that we make a very comprehensive document that we don't spend the same amount of time that we're spending here on when we get to the full commission. Maybe I'm misunderstanding, but that's what I'm thinking what we're doing now. Thank you.
Thank you. Co-chair Angie?
I do want to clarify what I meant in the email with working on documents outside of the committee, or I don't have the email that I wrote exactly, but what that piece of the email meant is that there were some clarifications that were noted that that were sent out to specific people in those documents. There are notes in there saying we need Catherine to clarify what this says, or Lavisa, or Angie to clarify what this line means. And that's what was sent out. Those were sent out to the people specifically, and then they were able to answer and send that back to staff. And we were able to incorporate some of that information, not all of it, but some of it. So that's what, there was no actual creation of documentation outside of the committee though.
Thank you, Co-chair Angie. Co-chair Sophia?
Yes, I just wanted to, just make another summary, based on some of the comments we had from Commissioner Dan. It's like the point of the document is not just being comprehensive. We're just designing a point of view as a subcommittee for this full commission to look at and to narrow down these items. The spreadsheet, of course, will always be there. And I understand that this commission or this subcommittee had a slower start because no one had volunteered basically to be the co-chairs. And so in order to try and get that kicked off, Angie and I decided to do that. So considering the time, we still need to get this done. I'm not saying that we're behind or anything. It's just the way the ball rolled, the cookie crumbled in this case. So there's no blame. It's just we have to see what's in front of us and we have to move on. And that's something that we can't change what happened in the past. What we can do right now is get together and get the document done. So having said that, I will ask Victoria to start us off, and keeping in mind that we are trying to solicit a point of view and not all those details have to be present in order for us to do that. So as we look at the document, we want to look at it in a way that says, this is what we've researched, and these are the things that we found that may be useful for our future. So I'll turn it over to Victoria.
Thank you, Co-chair Sophia. And we are ready to start. Please, staff, you can share the document.
Oh, one more thing. I just wanted to say, we have a goal to get the document down to 7 to 10 pages. So as we look at this, just to keep that in mind, trying to give the full picture and in a more concise manner. Thank you.
And if we want to know what has been changed, I can ask staff to explain that as well.
Yes, apologies for the screen share being a little wonky there for a moment. So there are some new items based on to clarify a little further, Co-chair Angie mentioned that some clarifications went out. There were a few items that have been suggested for inclusion that were not co-chairs and staff were not clear on what exactly was the best practice to try and do or to help synthesize items together. So there was a request that went out to individual members who had suggested those particular items asking for it. And as those came in, that yielded a few new entries from co-chairs and staff into this document, which is again, just synthesizing the suggestions from subcommittee members. So those have been noted and they're highlighted in blue for the sections that that the subcommittee has already gone through. And then there's some new sections down. There were 6 sections with the new lettering and structure that had been applied last time, and now there's several more. And then the last thing is at member suggestion, a couple of the anytime that there is a city listing that shows multiple detailed descriptions, those have been indented and with an unnumbered list added to help visually separate the individual cities. That was a suggestion made in a previous meeting as a formatting note. So that's everywhere. And then there's new items, which you'll see, for example, this highlighted in this bright blue, and some new sections down at the bottom. So if it's helpful to go to the first one, this is the first one, and I'll pass it back to whoever's going to be reading those, co-chairs or facilitators.
Okay, I can start this, and please let me know anytime you want to read. I can pass it to you. But the next one is, the West Star is A6. An oversight body conducts public review of police department budget. And in Oakland, the oversight body, the Oakland Police Commission, is a designated place for community input and decisions related to the police and oversight, including public review of and adjustment to the police department's annual budget. Okay. If I don't see any discussion, okay, I think I'm gonna ask questions. Okay. What with us, is this a practice you consider a best practice, meaning you like to be replicated in Portland? Does anyone has any comments on this entry before we move to the next one? Okay, we can move to the next one. Okay. Okay, the next one is hiring, firing of chief or staff. And the F2, the oversight body hires, manages, and can choose to fire the top monitor or inspector general. In Oakland, the Police Commission hires and fires the Inspector General. An Inspector General who provides this type of oversight and reporting makes this system more transparent and builds trust. Is this a practice you consider a best practice, meaning you like to be replicated in Portland? Does anyone have any comments before we move to the next one? Okay. Commissioner Catherine?
So I guess I'm just, you know, the two sentences don't make sense to me together. That so we're saying that the police commission hires and fires the inspector general, and then we say an inspector general who provides this type of oversight and reporting. I'm just not quite sure what that this type of oversight would, it seems like it would refer to the first sentence, which is the hiring and firing of the inspector general, but that can't make sense because it's the inspector general. It may be that what we're trying, that second sentence is trying to explain what an inspector general is. But it just seems like this sentence probably does not do it. And if what we're saying that builds trust is the fact that an independent civilian commission is the person that hires and fires the inspector general, then I think we should be saying that that's what builds trust. Not the creation of that function itself. I think that would be different. I hope that makes sense to folks. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Catherine. Commissioner Debbie?
Yeah, I agree. I think we should have a separate heading that proposes the idea of including an inspector general in our system as something for the group, the larger group, to think about as we design, Portland system. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you that it'd be better to have that under a separate heading. Because I know there were, I don't know, I remember Seattle had an inspector general and Oakland did, and probably others found them in their communities. And it's a concept that seems like we should be considering as a group about whether or not we want to propose that for Portland. But it doesn't belong in this point right here.
Okay. We will, staff is taking the notes to remove from this point. We move it to another section. Okay. We gonna move to the next one. The oversight body is directly involved in hiring and, if necessary, firing the police chief. In Oakland, the commission recommends 4 candidates for police chief to the mayor, who chooses and hires the chief from among these candidates. It also has a key role to play in firing, and with enough votes can fire the police chief independent of the mayor. This approach ensures community input is considered in police chief selection and removal. And I will pass it to the co-chair, Sophia.
Thank you. I just had one question actually for the one above, and I just want to say in Portland, how does do we have an inspector general, and how is that person hired? Is it an election or so?
Commissioner Debbie and then Commissioner Catherine.
We don't have an inspector general associated with our oversight system in Portland.
Thank you, Commissioner Debbie. Commissioner Catherine?
Yeah, I was just gonna add that, I think the closest thing we have is the fact that the IPR is in the auditor's office, or it used to be, I guess. But some some cities, it seems like, have put the inspector general function within their auditor's office. Some of them create a separate function, but it is, most similar to the function that the city auditor would perform. We just don't have it in this city. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Catherine. Commissioner Dan?
Hi, yes. So actually, I think that the closest thing I can think of like this is actually the compliance officer, community liaison, who does very detailed reports on the Department of Justice agreement, that the settlement agreement that the city entered into. We actually didn't hear from the compliance officer yet. I just realized that. But if and when the city ever gets out from underneath the DOJ agreement, the city won't have a position like that. So yeah, I think it's a good idea. And I'm not sure if Commissioner or Co-Chair Glenn's question also had to do with how the chief is selected here, but right now, basically, the mayor gets to pick the chief. Sometimes they include the community, sometimes they don't. But I want to, for making sure that this gets discussed either tonight or put in a parking lot or a garden plot or wherever the bin is these days, that I am very troubled by the idea of trying to make our document any certain number of pages. That this should be as long as it needs to be to present the information we need to present for the commission to do the rest of its work. And I'm really troubled by, when you look at the information that we're just discussing now, trying to put this in 10 pages because that's something that was decided. It wasn't decided. I would like to have a fuller discussion on it, but I don't want to distract us from getting through the document tonight. So I just want to put that on the record.
Thank you, Commissioner Dan. Okay. we're going to go to F3. I already read it. And is the oversight body is directly involved in hiring and if necessary, firing the police chief. Is this practice you consider a best practice, meaning you like it to be replicated in Portland, or does anyone has a comments on this entry? Okay. Are you okay? You can see everyone? Okay, thank you. Let's go to the G. Public nature of meetings and hearings. Okay. The oversight body holds meetings which are open and accessible to the public. Many jurisdictions, oh no, yeah, we don't have to read all that, but if this is a practice you consider a best practice, meaning you like it to be replicated in Portland, or anybody has any additional comments? Commissioner Dan? You are mute.
Even if we don't get to read it in the record, I'd like to see what the details say before
Sure.
we.
I can read it. I don't have any problem reading it.
I'm not asking you to read it. I'm just asking that the
Yeah,
staff
I know.
the screen. That would be great.
Okay. Everybody else, can we pass to the next? Okay, thank you. We'll pass to the next. Okay, G2, the oversight agency holds open evidentiary hearings on misconduct complaints and public investigative reports. This is a previous practice of the oversight system in Oakland, which ended in 2006. The public will follow the cases to understand exactly what the allegations of misconduct were against identified officers, how the complaints are investigated, and what the findings and recommendations for discipline were. California court case ended this practice, but Oakland advocates point to it as a best practice, even though it's not longer possible in California. A California court case ended this practice. Is this a practice you consider a best practice, meaning you would like to replicate it in Portland? Does anyone has any comments? Thank you. We will pass to the next one. G3. The oversight body has a set list of agenda items which are used every meeting. In the city of San Diego, their set agenda includes business is transacted, presentations are heard, communicate with public, heard testimony, but no in particular cases. Training is given, executive director report, police department report, committee and chair report, city attorney report, all business and new business. In San Diego County, agenda items include roll call, approval of minutes, work report by staff, share report, training for members, public input, including for complainants up to 3 minutes, new businesses, unfinished businesses, board member comments, sheriff liaison, query, and additional items may be filled with the chair by members. Is this practice you consider a best practice, meaning you would like to be replicated in Portland, or does anyone has any comments? Oh, file, file. Thank you, Commissioner Dan. Okay. Oh, sorry. There is a comment by the co-chair, Sophia. Go ahead.
Actually, it's for the one before. I didn't want to cut you off, so I wanted to get,
Okay.
before we did that, because I was a little slow. I still had the question, if anyone can answer on G2 about why was that practice stopped? It was in Oakland.
In California, a California court has ended this practice. What do you mean? Is that? And co-chair Debbie has the answer.
Well, I don't know, I had the answer, but when I read this, because I'm the one who did Oakland, I found this on, there's an advocacy group there that was actually behind all of these reforms that have taken place in Oakland. And one of the things they cite on their website is that before this court case took place, they had a very transparent investigative and discipline system in, I guess it was available to any jurisdiction in California. And then I imagine, I'm just going to guess that maybe the police union challenged it and the court decided that it had to be behind closed doors, maybe because it was part of the personnel system. But it seems to me this is something to aspire to. I have a feeling it's probably not likely that we'd ever get it, but I thought it was important to make note of it.
Thank you, Commissioner Debbie. Okay. Then we go back to G3 and I will wait if somebody wants to make a comment or if we can continue, you like to be replicated. Staff?
Yes, there was a question that came up, not from a member, but as part of the drafting process. It might be helpful if anyone can explain what sheriff liaison query means.
Mhm.
It's down in the San Diego County portion.
Yeah, sheriff liaison query. And Commissioner Dunn has the answer.
Yeah, I think it's just input from the sheriff's office. I can double back at some point. I mean, I feel like in this case, I feel like we can move forward without knowing the answer to that question. But, if you can just sort of, the indication is that somebody from the sheriff's office gives a report to the board.
Thank you, Commissioner Dunn. Okay, we can continue. G4. Regularly schedule community oversight board public meetings with agency director, chief of police, and manager of public safety. The oversight board holds open public meetings with the police chief, manager of public safety, and oversight agency director where policy issues, etc., can be discussed. Open meetings with leaders in public safety and accountability give the oversight board and public the opportunity to discuss critical issues, ask questions, and consider policy issues. Is this a practice you consider a best practice, meaning you like to be replicated in Portland? And does anyone has any comments before we move to the next one? Okay, we can go to the next one. G5, discipline is not revealed to the public. In San Diego City, law prohibits revealing discipline to the public, and it has a note, and maybe a staff. Oh, no, Commissioner Catherine make this comment, and yeah, I will pass it to Commissioner Monica.
It doesn't seem like that's a best practice to me. I don't think that should be under best practice.
Thank you, Commissioner Monica. And also Commissioner Catherine has mentioned that as well. Commissioner Dunn?
Yeah, well, this came from something that I researched, and I'm pretty sure I didn't say it was a best practice either. I think the question is that we have to find out from legal counsel, whether that's outside legal counsel or from city attorney, depending who we might get a straight answer from, whether or not that is something that we can have the new board do. So I think the best practice is that discipline should be revealed to the public. But I think I might have put to consider, so that we're not asking the board to do something that will put it in jeopardy. So I don't know how to phrase that in the context of the way we're designing this document, but that's what I meant by it.
Thank you, Commissioner Dunn. And Commissioner Catherine?
Yeah, I think that in the context of my researching LA County, I think there is a law in California that I mean, it's a state law that prohibits the disclosure of discipline. So it's possible that what we really want to say is something to the effect of discipline should be made public to the extent allowable by law, to the extent allowable under law, or something like that. I think that's really the point here. I think California would, just similar to what we were just talking about in terms of those open meetings, I think it was that same law that sort of stopped that. But it basically, I think that's the point here, is that to the extent state law allows for revealing discipline publicly, or the collective bargaining agreements allow for it, then the results of the investigation and the discipline imposed should be made public. Thank you.
Thank you. Co-Chair Sophia?
Yeah, so this document is for practices that we would like to push forward. So as it sits, as it's stated, it's not something we want to push forward. So I know we talked about having practices to avoid. And I find that that would be appropriate here. But because they're not doing it, it's not what we're trying to say in this document. This is what other people are doing, and this is what we find may be helpful for us. And this one is not. It's my understanding.
And then your proposal is that change this to practice to avoid.
Yes.
And pretty much Commissioner Monica expressed that too. Commissioner Dunn?
Well, I just went back to the spreadsheet, and it appears that, and it's not, I think this heading has to do with, oh, can you remind me what the heading, the overall heading is here for G?
Sure. Sure.
Public
It's
nature,
commission.
yeah. Well, I don't know if it fits here, but it says that in New York, in line DH068, it says that in New York, the reports include discipline, case dispositions and discipline. So we could, as was suggested, flip this, the item that we're discussing around and say discipline should be reported to the public. Say in New York, it does get reported, and then say, in California, it's not reported. So I think that would fix both the issues that have come up. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Dunn.
So the proposal, I would still leave San Diego City out because it's a negative of what we're wanting to do, but I don't see any reason why we shouldn't use New York there instead of San Diego.
Thank you, Co-Chair Sophia. Commissioner Monica?
I liked what Catherine said when she said this discipline should be revealed to the public to the extent allowable by law. That way it's clear that we understand that there may be some barriers to being able to do that. And then we can keep it in there as what we think should be a best practice.
Okay. Thank you. And the staff has yeah, can you take a note? Yeah, can I pass it to the staff?
Yeah, the only thing that I wanted to mention here is the, and this has to do with, I think, the categorization. This is under public natures of meetings / hearings. And I imagine that in doing the research, it came up from the perspective of, is this something discussed at meetings or hearings? The New York comment is actually under reporting. So I don't mean to obfuscate too much by moving ahead, but there is a section coming up in which there is a item. It's here. Specifically says that discipline letters are posted online includes officer names, which is from a similar line. So it's also a question of moving this down into another category and combining, if that makes sense. We're going to get to this item later in this process, but that's why it hasn't been shown yet. Just wanted to clarify this just in two different categories at present. And if anyone has an opinion on which of the two categories it seems to make more sense in, that might also be helpful if co-chairs can guide or anyone else.
Thank you, staff. And I will pass it to co-chair Sophia.
Okay, thank you. Going back to the item, which as is stated, is not considered a best practice because it's not something that any of us think we should do. There's the caveat of what we should do, which is not stated here. So if it would be best just to strike this one and to go back to the New York example and quite in that comment that Catherine and Monica said it, that it should be published to whatever the law extent that the law allows would be more appropriate.
Okay, what I understand is crossing here, change it as Commissioner Catherine say, and then put it under reporting. Commissioner Monica?
I'd like that discipline. I'd like that to be in a single line as a single idea though, because I think it makes it strong. So I wouldn't want this to be buried under all the other types of reporting that there is. I would like it to stand alone as we think that discipline should be revealed to the public to the extent of the law allows.
Discipline should be revealed to the public and put it as Commissioner Catherine suggested.
The issue I have with that is that that is not what that state is doing. And what we're trying to say is what some other jurisdiction did and does, and that is not what they do. So that wouldn't be accurate.
Yeah, let's take out San Diego and put it at the example of New York there.
Okay.
Right? I mean,
I suggested that earlier. No one said anything. So.
Okay, we will say discipline shall be revealed to the public, identify in New York, and then use what Commissioner Catherine mentioned. To the extent the state law allows. Okay. We will do that and we will go to the next. The oversight body holds open meetings regularly and frequently. In the city of San Diego, open meetings are generally held once per month. The oversight board held 11 open meetings in 2021. In New York, the oversight body holds open meetings at least once a month, with exceptions for August and December. And in San Diego County, open meetings are held 1 or 2 times per month. If there is a practice that you would like to be replicated in Portland, consider a best practice. Does anyone has any comments? Okay, the next one is hearings on individual cases are generally open to the public with limited specific exceptions defined in the law. In Maryland, every county has a trial board and its proceedings are open to the public with limited exceptions. just as to protect the identity of a victim. Seattle is a partial example of this practice. As in Seattle, some appeal hearings are open to the public. If the officer chooses arbitration, then they are not. The Police Accountability Commission also identifies several counterexamples which are considered practice to avoid. In the city of San Diego, closed meetings are held twice a month and are confidential to hear cases and other matters not subject to disclosure. Presentations from the Shootings Review Board and discussions of discipline occur in closed meetings. In New York, hearings are now open to the public. In San Diego County, hearings are now open to the public. In closed session, board staff and legal discussions is confidential. And I will pass it to Commissioner Dunn.
So for simplicity's sake, I think this is a good example of how we could handle that previous item about discipline, that we can put in what New York does and then say there's a counterexample in California. And instead of flipping back and forth between the practices to avoid and the best practices, I think the practices to avoid should be reserved for practices that have nothing to do with our best practices. So in the cases where we find counterexamples to our best practices, I think they can be included just like this. I think this is a very good example. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Dunn. Okay. Is this a practice you consider a best practice, meaning you like to be replicated in Portland? Does anyone have any comments? Thank you, Commissioner. Oh, Co-Chair Sophia, you want to say something or was just agreeing? Oh, you were agreeing. Okay, perfect. We're going to the next one. H. Oversight body budget is limited to less than 1% of the police department's budget. In Philadelphia, the police oversight budget is limited to less than 1% of the police department's budget. In Washington, D.C., the oversight budget is $2.2 million, mostly for salaries. In the city of San Diego, the budget of Citizens Review Board and police practice, which existed from 1988 to 2016, was $1,327,134 for 3 staff members. The Commission on Police Practices, which was created in 2020, has a budget of about $2.5 million. Commissioner Monica?
I'm not sure that this needs to be highlighted as a best practice. I think I've discussed this before. Our charter states we have 5% of the police budget to work on accountability, and I don't think we should be emulating 1% at all.
Thank you, Commissioner Monica. And yes, there's a note here, comment. Is this practice of oversight body budget is limited to less than 1% of the police department budget a practice to avoid? Commissioner Dunn?
Well, yeah, I think phrased the way it is, yes. I think that if it's, if I were to pull something from this, I would say the oversight body's budget should be sufficient for it to complete its mission. And then we can give these examples and say, the ones where it's limited, the Philadelphia example could be this could be a limitation, that obviously is much smaller than what Portland's is. So I feel like that the charter says at least 5% of the budget. So I think we should leave something in saying that there has to be sufficient money to make it work. And I don't know that The other two examples aren't necessarily making those bodies work properly, but they, it is what it is. They're not saying they're limited. And then we can put the Philadelphia as the counterexample. I hope that all made sense. And I hope other people followed my suggestion of turning this into a positive.
Thank you, Commissioner Dunn. Co-Chair Sophia?
Yes, I'd just like to comment that co-chairs and I discussed this one, and we're contemplating the same idea that it should be sufficient. So, and leaving those as examples. So that's just a change in the subheading, similar to what you suggested already. We have support staff has a comment as well.
Yes.
Just a question for when it's reworded. Which jurisdictions, if any, are the best practice in that it's doing that they're funded enough? In other words, is there one or more jurisdictions that should be listed in the identified in, which are giving enough or sufficient or whatever that term would be?
And I will pass it to Commissioner Monica.
Do I remember that the budget in New York City is magnanimous? I mean, the city is giant, right? And that has a huge police department, but I think it was giant.
So Monica, or what is your suggestion?
That New York could be an example of a police department, a police accountability system that is well funded. I don't know if that is the case or not, but I remember that their budget was huge from the report. I don't remember who. I don't know. I don't remember who researched New York.
It was Dan.
Thank you.
I mean, they will change it. I wanna ask staff if these answers are sufficient for what you asked.
We need to fact check it, but yes. If the goal is to reword it as a positive, the alternatives would be to, and it's up to the subcommittee, whether to remove it or to reconvert into or just move it as is in the practices to avoid. Those are the sort of three options. If the subcommittee does want to do it that way, then we just need it as a positive and reframe it, then it would just need a fact check, but otherwise, yeah. Yes.
Thank you. Can we just rephrase it now and get it over with? The oversight body's budget should be sufficient for what is required. To complete, I don't know, I'm trying to find the word to fulfill the duties of the oversight body. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Co-Chair Sophia, and thank you, Commissioner Dunn. I see your notes in the chat with the information, the necessary information to turn it into positive and best practice. And when staff is ready, we can continue with this document. Okay, added functions. The oversight agency reviews all misconduct investigations to ensure they are complete before findings and discipline are determined. In Seattle, there is an Inspector General who reviews investigations prior to findings and discipline being determined. This practice helps ensure investigators conduct throughout investigations and inserts an added layer of oversight and review to the process. Is this a practice you consider a best practice, meaning you like to be replicated in Portland? Does anyone have any comments about it? Okay, we can go to the next. Okay. The oversight agency added closed cases allocating misconduct and made recommended police changes. In San Francisco, the added division reviews closed complaints. In New York, the executive director added closed cases. In Oakland, the inspector general is responsible for ensuring allegations of misconduct and are truly investigated and identify systematic policies needing improvement. This continue oversight similar to DOJ or court monitor. Is this a practice you consider a best practice, meaning you like to be replicated in Portland? And does anyone has any comments? Thank you, Commissioner Dan, for your notes. Okay. The oversight body may conduct Sentinel event reviews. Sentinel event reviews study in depth a significant and undesirable event with the goal of prevention rather than response. A broad review of incidents of concern to the community for the purpose of learning from past mistakes gives the community and police the opportunity to learn and develop new policies and practices that will lead to better outcomes. In Seattle, the Office of the Inspector General oversees Sentinel event reviews, which are led by a select group of community members, police representatives, and OIG. Is this a best practice that you would like to consider to replicate in Portland? Does anyone have any comments or discussions? Okay. We can continue with, oh yeah, Commissioner Monica.
Thank you. I would just like, I think that is a great thing to add there. When I see Sentinel event reviews, it makes me really think about a root cause analysis, and I would like to put those words in there somehow, because let's see, a broad review of incidents of concern to the community for the purpose of having a root cause analysis, evaluation, and learning from past mistakes, something of the sort. I think those words have a lot of weight.
And Commissioner Dan?
I agree with that comment. I think that the I3, the header, should say may conduct reviews of undesirable police-related events, which I'm sure that's what we're talking about, not like if you had a bad music concert or something in the city. So, because Sentinel event reviews is a specific term that's used in that one city. So I think it should just be more broad to say may conduct reviews of undesirable police-related events.
Thank you. And it is AOA. Before we continue with reporting, we're gonna take a 10-minute break. We will come back at 8:18. Thank you.
Debbie,
Thank you. Let's continue with the document. Okay. We are going to continue with reporting. Okay, reporting. The oversight body and agency are required to regularly and frequently issue public reports. Several jurisdictions require annual reports, with many jurisdictions requiring more frequent reports in addition to an annual report. In Washington, D.C., there is an annual report and semi-annual review, as well as the use of force reports. And there is a question or comment. The City of San Diego Oversight Body issues semi-annual reports to the mayor and city council. San Francisco's Oversight Body issues annual reports. Philadelphia's Oversight Body issues annual reports. In New York, the police unit issues monthly, semi-annual, and annual reports on data, a total of 14 reports a year. The monthly statistical reports are generated before each meeting. In Seattle, City Code requires an annual report. In San Diego County, there is an annual report. In Denver, the Oversight Body issues an annual report and has one of its meetings specifically designed for public comment on the report. Is this a practice you consider a best practice, meaning you would like to replicate it, be replicated in Portland? And does anyone have any comments on this entry before we move to the next? But there is a questions, and Commissioner Dan answered in the chat. Besides that, is there any additional comments? Thank you, Commissioner Dan. Okay. Thank you. Let's go to the next one. Annual reports of the Oversight Body and Oversight Agency have required contents which are defined by law. The Commission identifies the definition of required context in law as the best practice by listing a specific reporting requirements and the code for agency and commission reports. It ensures the same type of information will be available to the public and others over time. This facilitates year-to-year comparisons and reliable access to information. In Seattle, the required context of agency and commission annual reports are defined in code. In the city of San Diego, the reports include duties and powers, redacted case summaries, and summaries of committee work. This is a partial best, and we need, please, can you move the page? Yes, thank you. This is a partial best practice, as it is not required to include statistics on how the board voted on discipline. Through reports often do include this information. In San Francisco, the annual report includes cases, allegations, and demographics, disaggregated by geographical area or district, as well as policy recommendations and their status and summary of the average. In San Francisco, the annual report includes cases, allegations, and demographics, disaggregated by geographical area or district, as well as policy recommendations and their status, and a summary of average. In New York, reports include agency operations, complaint activity, case disposition, and discipline. In San Diego County, the annual report includes board activities, recommendations, outcomes, trends, board mission, staff, members' biographies, messages from chair and executive director, complaints by year, quarter allegations by unit, type, and agency, lists board actions by case number, date, and findings, list death cases. Is this a practice you consider a best practice, meaning you like it to be replicated in Portland? And then Or does anyone has any comments on this entry before we will move to the next? No? Okay. Okay, we can move to the next one. Oh, yes, co-chair Sophia.
Oh, I was just wanting to know if you would like some relief or reading.
It's up to you. You wanna go? Go ahead.
Okay. I think you can take a rest. But I still need you to facilitate. Thank you. All right, are we on J3? Reporting on closed cases, including all information except complaints and officer names in specific situations. As identified in Washington. Okay, several jurisdictions publish data on closed cases, which with dates, facts of the case, and findings included. Sometimes there are exceptions for the officer and complainant's names, but these are specifically defined exceptions to open reporting. So in Washington, D.C., case decisions are posted online without the officer or complainant's name, but with facts of the case and supporting the findings. In San Francisco, data on officer-involved shootings include names of officers and dates. In Philadelphia, data on officers-involved shootings include names of officers and dates. Every case reviewed is posted with detail on the complaints, findings, outcomes with names, if complainants allow, as well as the names of the officers involved. Police Accountability Commission can also identifies counterexamples which they consider practices to avoid. In New York, data on cases that went to the mediation are not public.
Thank you. Oh, do you want to ask a question? Okay, Commissioner Dan?
Yes, well, I think, well, for one thing, I think Washington, D.C. should be moved to the bottom of the upper list because it has the exceptions and the other two don't. But I believe that New York reports on the officer and maybe the complainant's names too. So the exception to that is in this counterpoint. I'm pointing at my screen. But I think that New York's general practice needs to be listed in this, and I can try to find the line number.
Okay. Thank you. Besides that, adding what Commissioner Dan suggested, is this a practice you consider a best practice, meaning you like to be replicated in Portland? Does anyone else have any comments? Commissioner Debbie.
Yeah, I apologize for not having paid close attention to you going over this, but I just wanted to make sure. So Seattle, they put on their website summaries of cases, but they even tell you what the discipline is or was, and there are no names involved. But I think if we don't have one that has an example of revealing the discipline, then I think we should add the Seattle one into this list.
Okay. Thank you. And staff?
So the line for Seattle is included, and there's a flag for it for further discussion from Commissioner Monica. So it hasn't yet been incorporated, and that's the reason why. So the text of it is: the Seattle Office of Police Accountability posts closed case summaries online. They include a summary of the incident and alleged misconducts, as well as the director's response to each misconduct allegation. if the discipline is imposed, the type and severity of discipline are also included. Names of involved officer and complainant are not included. And then there was a flag on that for when we went through this, when the subcommittee went through the spreadsheet saying that the concern was at the time, Commissioner Monica said, is that there shouldn't be a best practice designation on the portion about not naming officer names. So that's why it wasn't included. If that's separatable out, we weren't 100% clear on how that wanted to be included by Commissioner Nevi. So any clarity there, we'll definitely add it in now that it's been formulated this way, if you think it aligns.
Does anyone have any additional comments? Yes, Commissioner Monica?
One of the things that Philadelphia does is that it keeps the names out while the investigation is still in process. And then when the investigation is completed and there are, and everything is done, then all the information gets published. So maybe that would be a distinction that could make it more possible to instate in Portland, the fact that while the investigation is in process, names are not published. That, but when it's concluded, then all the information is given out.
Thank you, Commissioner Monica. And we also have Commissioner Dan comments in the chat. Thank you. And he just reminded us that reporting on closed cases. Based on the conversation, can we pass to the next one? There is additional comments. Okay. Co-chair Sophia.
Okay. We're on J4. The oversight agency maintains an online tracker of commission policy recommendations, including their responses and implementation. This is identified in Seattle's placing a recommendation tracker on the website gives the public the opportunity to see which commission, civilian agency, and IG recommendations have been implemented. The Seattle tracker provides reasons for the recommendations that have not been implemented, as well as responses and progress on the implementation.
Thank you. Is this a practice you consider a best practice, meaning you like to be replicated in Portland? Does anyone have any comments? I can see we can move to the next one.
On J5, online reporting includes complaints, findings, outcomes, and discipline, as well as aggregated data. In New York, online reporting includes sample cases, complaints, complaints, allegations, victims, and officers. Data includes race, gender, age, and outcomes. In New York, discipline letters are posted online and include officers' names. In San Francisco, the online dashboard shows case statistics, open, closed, and sustained allegations and findings. In Philadelphia, the online dashboard shows case statistics, open, closed, and sustained allegations of findings.
Thank you. Is this a practice you consider a best practice to be replicated in Portland? Does anyone have any comments? Thank you. We can move to the next.
J6, oversight body can propose the release of otherwise confidential information. There is nothing on there's a reference to it on the spreadsheet, but there's no other information. That was for New York. I'm sorry.
Sure. Okay, Commissioner Dunn?
I looked back at the spreadsheet. This is my item. I didn't add any more details, but I did suggest in the justification, I think that we could just say here in the insert information part, that there's probably a list of specific circumstances where this is appropriate. I don't know if I have information about that or not, but I think just we should hint at that so that when this is discussed for Portland, assuming everybody agrees with it, that some thought goes into creating such a list of when it's appropriate to kind of override those concerns. And I guess I should say that my understanding of the state law about the privacy of employee is that it says that unless it's in the public interest, it can't be released. And at Portland Cop Watch, we've argued for years and years that when a police officer harms a community member, it's always in the public interest. So that's, but that's a side note to my general comment that I just made.
Thank you, Commissioner Dunn. With those comments, can we go to the next? Okay.
Facilitator
Yes,
Laura,
Yes.
this was the part, that was the end of the section, so should we go back up to the top where the comments were?
Okay. And the first one is A3. The oversight body has authority to make recommendations regarding police and training. And there was a question. In order to resolve this comment, Commissioner Monica, staff, go ahead.
Just to clarify, I believe, and Commissioner Debbie, please feel free to jump in if this is if this is accurate or not, that the conversation last meeting was about the answer to that particular question being in the section, a future section, which we have not yet gotten to, which is the police chief's responsibility to respond section, I believe is what it's called. Duty to respond might be the terminology there. And that what I'm asking is if that resolves the comment.
So, are you saying later on we talk about what, because I think the, it was capturing that the situation in Oakland where there's a, it seemed to me that the their oversight board can make recommendations. And then if the police department doesn't like it, then city council gets to make the final say. If they don't say anything, then whatever the commission recommended is what happens. And so do you think we captured that somewhere? So their recommendations stick and there's a requirement for action. And if there's no action, then that's what happens. So, and where did you say that ended up?
There's a category in the spreadsheet. It's the second to last category, so it'll be a while.
Okay. As
Yeah.
long as we capture it, I think it would be good, because I think I thought the idea that, you know, it seems like sometimes we have these advisory bodies who make recommendations and then they just sort of, you know, go into outer space or something. But in Oakland's case, they don't, you know, the commission has real teeth then as far as when they're making policy decisions. Plus, they also get to review all of the policies that the police department comes up with. And if they don't like them, then, you know, they have some say about what happens to them.
In
But you're
reading,
saying that comes later on.
I'm saying, I was asking if that should come later on more. So in looking at what's in
Oh.
the spreadsheet on that line, it's all practices to avoid in that category. So perhaps now that, thank you for the clarification, it might make more sense to put here, just because this is where the content is. So as opposed to where it could be. But it's up to the group, of course.
Okay, sorry, I feel like I'm not much help because I'm not quite seeing the whole picture, but
To clarify, I think you are actually seeing the whole picture.
Okay,
So
okay.
I just, yeah, thank you.
all right, yeah, but again, just somehow wherever it seems appropriate, you know, making note of the fact that in Oakland, that commission has a lot of authority over policy, both coming from the police department and when they want to make recommendations to the police department, they have a lot of power over what happens with that. And so someplace, if we had that, it would be good to have it. So to say it. And Samir, I can send you the passage from my original write-up if that would help.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Okay, good, I will.
Thank you, Commissioner Debbie, and thank you, staff. The next one is is oversight body has defined authority over misconduct directly affecting the public. This is a comment from Commissioner Monica. And Commissioner Monica, would you like to comment in order to?
I think when I was thinking about the comment, I was worried that a list would limit the number of things that could be investigated by the board. But there was also another comment that if we can make a comprehensive list, then that would be super helpful. I just don't want to end up with things that don't get investigated because they were not on a list on a list.
And let me ask staff if that clarifies the comment.
Staff's not seeking clarity so much as making sure there's space for the subcommittee to resolve whatever comments there may be on this particular one.
Okay, and I have Commissioner Co-Chair Sophia and Co-Chair Angie, and then Commissioner Dan.
So I just wanted to ask Commissioner Monica. So I'm just trying to clarify, see how we can clarify this. So you don't want to have a specific list. I don't think it refers to a specific list. But if you want to, I'm saying you, if you want to suggest, or if you're suggesting that we add just a comment saying such as, we don't want to limit this, then I'm just asking you, what would you like to see to resolve this is kind of where I'm going.
No, I think that I felt better about my concern after, after it was described that a list could be very helpful, because we just want to make sure that the list is comprehensive.
Thank you. Co-Chair Sophia, Co-Chair Angie.
Thank you. I agree with having a list, but I don't want to ever define it as a comprehensive list, because I don't want to overprescribe what we're saying, because it's harder to back out of that box later. So I agree with Monica, and I would suggest that we word it the way that I think it is worded right now, stating a list that is inclusive, but does not only include these items. So that's just my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, Co-Chair Angie. And Commissioner Dan?
Yeah, I think I was the person that made the comment on this comment last time, and I posted back in the chat the section of the charter that has a very short, limited list of things that the new board can look at, but it says that they can investigate other complaints as they see fit or is mandated by code. So that's where we could have a list that mandates they investigate certain kinds of complaints other than the narrow list that is listed in the charter.
As it was suggested, can we pass to the next comment? Are there additional comments? No? Okay. Thank you. Okay. The next comment is, a standing civilian police accountability board receives complaints, appoints civilians to a civilian charging committee and to any necessary trial boards, and reviews all data regarding complaints and submits an annual report each year to the local council. The civilian PAB identifies trends and makes police recommendations about the complaint process. There's a couple comments from Commissioner Dan and Commissioner Lovisa. Yes, staff.
There was a little bit of confusion here on this item, and co-chair Sophia, co-chair Angie, and staff were looking at this one in light of the spreadsheet. So there was a little bit of lack of clarity there. So this was intended to be, it was flagged for change prior to next draft on the 12th, and it didn't get changed as a result of that. So we're still kind of trying to understand the intention of what it was, so that it's not co-chairs and staff removing things that were desired for inclusion, so much as consolidating and combining and synthesizing ideas. So just to clarify why that didn't get done.
Thank you, staff. Commissioner Dan?
Yeah, I read through the draft we were presented last night, and I came across this again, and I believe Commissioner Lloyd said this was her intent, that there should be one sentence in this section that says a standing civilian police accountability board receives complaints, appoints civilians, blah, 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 to trial boards, period. And then my suggestion, if you look at the comments from last time, were that this thing about the police accountability board, which should be genericized, reviews data regarding complaints and submits an annual report to city council, should go to the reporting section. And the board identifies trends and makes policy recommendations should go to the policy recommendation section. I think that would be fairly easy to do. I mean, you have to break up the explanatory paragraph as well, but I think that would solve it.
Commissioner Lovisa?
Yeah, I think that what Dan just said makes sense. Leaving that first sentence there, separating out the second and third sentences. And sending them to the relevant sections.
Okay, next one. The next one is San Diego staff believes this power has never been used in San Diego. And the commissioner's suggestion for inclusion. Commissioner Dan, would you like to make a comment? Yes, go ahead.
Well, you called on me without me raising my hand. Sure, I think we should include it, and I think it's an example of something that I've sort of talked about before, but we really need to be. I don't know how we can ensure this with our new board, that people write things into these into their charters or into their laws, and then the board doesn't use them. So I don't know what to do about ensuring that that happens, but I think it's important to note that even though it's written down, it's never been used. And so if somebody challenges that, you know, this is a best practice, it's never been done, well, it doesn't matter. The practice is to put it in the law, right? Not, you know, the fact that they've never done it doesn't really matter, but I don't want somebody coming back and throwing that back in our face. So I think we should include this in the document.
Any additional comments? No. Okay, we can go to the next one. Membership totals range from 5 to 23 members, with many allowing from flexibility and totals. Any additional clarifications or comments from this comment in order to be resolved, Commissioner Dan?
Right. Well, I think I put the comments that are in the right side there into the chat last time, and I think I would like to see it updated to reflect those so that we're not suggesting a board with 5 people is a best practice.
Okay, thank you. And there is another comment. Board member makeup should reflect the demographics, geographic, and diversity of the community. And it has a comment by Monica. By Commissioner Monica, I'm sorry. Is there an additional comments in order to resolve this comment?
Not really. I mean, Philadelphia attempted to represent all of the districts in their board by deciding to pick a certain number from each district. So they attempted this, but in the process, they ended up not picking people that they thought would have been better qualified, because not all districts had enough candidates when they were in the process of picking their board members. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. Okay. Yes, co-chair Sophia.
I just wanted to, board members' makeup should reflect the demographics and geographic diversity of the community when possible. Is that what you're saying, Monica?
No, that's not what I'm saying. Is that what I was saying is that Philadelphia attempted this, but it didn't work as well for them. Not because they weren't trying to get representation, but the quality of the candidates that they got from this different districts weren't, that was a hardship for them. So they were trying to get representation. How do I explain this? Let's say they wanted 5 people from each from each district, but one district had 15 candidates and a lot of them were excellent, but another district only had 5 candidates and they weren't that great. So they ended up with a police accountability commission that they wish had better people in it.
Thank you. Before I pass it to Dr. Moses, should we remove geographic then? What I understand?
I think it's important to try and do, though, I really do.
Okay.
Especially geographic, and in Portland, that gets very important. That is very important in Portland because there's a lot of different economic geographies in Portland that need to be represented.
May I,
Go ahead, Co-Chair Sophie.
I guess I wanted to find a way to resolve this. And are you wanting to put Philadelphia in there? Or were you just bringing that as a note of caution?
There you go. I think we could put Philadelphia as an example of a city that really tried to do this and have the caution, the explanatory caution there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Can we go to the next one? Or Dr. Moses, you wanna say something? Okay, thank you. We can go to the next one. And the next one is board members take an oath and sign affirmation of an appointment and reappointment. Any discussion to resolve this comment? Swearing in of the board members. It needs more information. The question is, are we recommending this as a best practice? Co-Chair Sophia?
I just wanted to ask Commissioner Dan, I'm reading his comments, he wants to include that. Would we like to do something similar as we did in the previous one as a note to caution? I'm just trying to resolve it. So it's just a question, putting some thought out there.
Yes, Commissioner Dan?
Well, I guess my response would be, I'd like to hear what the other commissioners have to say about it. And we're only 7 out of 20 commissioners. I don't know it's a best practice. As I said, it could be a barrier, but it could also be a really important thing to make sure that we don't have people who sign on to the board and then, undermine its work. As I think it also says somewhere that I think that this is the practice currently in Portland, where you have to take an oath when you sign on and be part of a board. Although I don't think we swore an oath when we got put on here. But there are certain things we have to agree to. So maybe it can be more broad and say, you know, board members have to agree to certain parameters, appointments and reappointments. And then the oath and affirmation can be put under the San Diego City specific example.
Sorry, I didn't raise my hand. I wanted to know from the other members, I think generalizing that may solve it. Wording is another story. Board members must agree upon, must agree to specific terms of appointment and reappointment, and then use that as a example for San Diego City. Okay. How do we feel like about that as a group? All right, so we can just add it now. So that could be done.
Thank you. I think there is 9:02. We need to go to a public comment. We will now take public comment on the issues the subcommittee is discussing. Our community members can also tell their story about policy and police accountability. We ask members of the public to keep their comments or questions to 2 minutes and length and raise their hand in Zoom if you like to speak. Okay, I don't see anybody has raised their hand. Now we will go to the garden plot recap. And I will pass it to the co-chairs first and then to Dr. Moses. Is there anything in the garden plot recap from co-chair Sophia or co-chair Angie? No? Okay. Dr. Moses?
The one comment that I have is to have a fuller discussion about the length of this document that you've been reviewing. That's the only comment that I have.
Thank you, Dr. Moses. Staff?
Nothing new to add beyond that.
Thank you. Then can we go to slide 18, please? Thank you to all the members who attend today's meeting and for your contributions today. Thank you also to the interpreters supporting access to meetings of the Police Accountability Commission and its subcommittee for all Portlanders. Thank you to the members of community for attending this meeting. You can give advance public meeting prior to future meetings. You can sign up for emails updates on the PAC work as well. The next meeting of this subcommittee is on this Thursday, September 22nd. It's now 9:04 and this meeting is adjourned.